An unseen observer watches the small blonde girl, thinking how pitiful she looks, sitting all alone. Clenching her fists, a maid thinks the Duke is far too cold and harsh toward his already fragile daughter. One maid tells another that her heart aches every time she sees the lady, and the other agrees, saying it makes her want to care for her even more. But little do they know, Daphne can hear every word, and she is absolutely fuming about being called pitiful. She internally scoffs. As the mighty black dragon, she shouldn't care about human whispers, but this weak body makes it difficult. Besides, that man is about to arrive. Thump! She drops to the floor, sensing his presence. He's here. As she scurries away, she explains that to understand her bizarre behavior, you must first understand that human. He is the lord of the Acheon Duke House, the hero who drove away the great calamity, a man with a heavy past etched into his sorrowful eyes. A maid mistakenly believes Daphne's trembling is excitement, gushing over how much the lady likes him, and suggesting they go pay their respects. Daphne glares, her inner voice correcting the record. He's the father of the body she now inhabits. Her face contorts in pure, unadulterated rage. She throws an epic tantrum on the floor, screaming she'd rather die than go near him, leaving the maids utterly stunned by her outburst. The story flashes back, explaining that 5 dragons, believed to be fragments of gods, once protected the world's empires. But beyond them existed monstrous, out-of-spec dragons, ruthless beings that destroyed everything in their path. The greatest of them all was a creature of pure destruction, wreathed in purple lightning, the great calamity, Celis. Not even the combined might of humans, elves, and the 5 divine dragons could stop him. He was an eternal disaster, a force of nature, until one day a lone, bloodied hero stood before him. With a sudden strike, the hero aimed for the calamity's left eye, somehow knowing it was the location of his core. The battle-worn hero catches his breath, admitting it was a hard fight. With his blade aimed true, he commands the calamity to die, enraging the great beast. Roaring at the worthless humans, the calamity unleashes a devastating blast of energy, but the hero stands firm. The hero reveals they didn't kill him, but sealed him for 1,000 years, cursing that his descendants would be waiting to end him upon his return. The calamity couldn't understand why he was born this way, a divine curse destined for ruin. He rages against the unfairness of it all as divine chains bind him. In his final moments before being sealed, the calamity vows to kill the hero, a promise that echoes into the present day. He swore that upon his return, he would slaughter not only the hero, but all of his descendants, a vow made over a vision of a tragic funeral. With his own hands, he would kill them all. This burning hatred now resides in the draconic eyes of a little girl in a black dress. Suddenly, she awakens in that very scene, a funeral where she was supposed to be the one in the coffin, leaving everyone, including herself, completely bewildered. The mourners can only stare in open-mouthed shock. They erupt in a panic, shouting that the lady has come back to life and that the hero must be told immediately. Back in the present, Daphne stretches, noting her new body still feels sluggish. She looks in the mirror with disgust, annoyed that she looks exactly like that damn hero. She reflects on her return. No one suspects her identity, especially not the hero, who saw her resurrected and only said, "You're not dead, huh?" before leaving for good. She finds his coldness strange, wondering why humans who are supposedly weak for family would treat their own daughter worse than a stranger. The only concept of family she recalls is the image of a crying mother embracing her child. But she quickly brushes it off, deciding who cares about all that sentimental nonsense. After all, this body is the ultimate Trojan horse. It carries the bloodline of the world's strongest hero and houses the soul of the great calamity. She fantasizes about revealing her true, magnificent form to the hero and telling him she's the black dragon he sealed. Giggling with glee, she sets her first objective, total conquest of the household. With newfound purpose, she sits up, ready to begin her reign. But there's a huge problem. She can't use her magic. Her mana is blocked by a massive, invisible dam, which she hopes is just due to the body's youth. She checks her status window and is horrified. Daphne Akion's stats are abysmal. 10 health, 1 strength, and 0 mana, with traits like brat, delinquent, and rude. She can't believe it. With 10 health, she's barely alive. And why in the world is her charm at 300? Panicking, she grabs the status window, screaming about her 0 mana. How can the daughter of the hero have such garbage stats? She suddenly feels sick. Oh no. She coughs up a spray of blood, staring at her hands in horror as a maid screams her name. The maids rush to her side, begging her to stop coughing and get off the cold floor. But she snaps back that she can't exactly control it. As they lay her down and clean her face, a chilling thought crosses her mind. This entire situation feels terrifyingly familiar. The maid's whispers confirm her worst fear. The illness she had before being revived was never healed. She's terminally ill. "What did you just say?" she demands, her eyes wide with terror. The story shifts, recalling events from a few decades ago. A mysterious, hooded man once spoke to her, smiling as he smugly foretold that she would become a lowly, pitiful creature. After being annoyed by some prophetic nonsense, a mysterious figure is unceremoniously punched across the continent. Meanwhile, a young blonde duchess awakens in a new body, furious that she's on some kind of time limit before coughing violently. She glares intensely, demanding to know what illness she's suffering from, but is met with nervous stammering. Her 2 brown-haired maids hesitate, recalling how the Duchess used to hate even the name of her illness and might throw a vase at them. Realizing the original Daphne was a handful, she presses on until one maid finally reveals the diagnosis, the black butterfly disease. The name hangs in the air, surrounded by an ominous, thorny mist. She recalls reading about the disease, a deadly black magic curse that creates butterfly wing marks on the body, leading to death when all 4 wings turn black. Checking her neck, she realizes her mark was only half a wing, far from the fatal 4. She confronts her maids, pointing out the inconsistency. If the disease wasn't advanced enough to kill, why did she die so early? The maids are stumped, with one only vaguely remembering that her lady's condition had suddenly taken a turn for the worse. Daphne finds their memory loss suspicious, especially since they used to fuss over her slightest sneeze. Something is definitely not right. She comes to a chilling conclusion. This body was already dead before she arrived. She wasn't sick. She was murdered. Her theory solidifies. Someone killed her and then wiped the memories of everyone around her to cover it up. She racks her brain, wondering who could possibly possess such power. The answer comes to her in a flash of dark purple energy. It had to be the Black Mages. She quickly asks a maid if news of her revival has gotten out, receiving a hesitant no. The maid explains His Excellency ordered her revival kept secret, fearing she might die again. Daphne scoffs, calling him a pessimist. Relieved that she's safe from assassins for now, Daphne hugs her pillow, but fumes over her father's suspicious motives. She throws a tiny, adorable tantrum on the bed, much to her maid's concern. The maid enthusiastically reassures her, announcing they've hired a new, highly skilled doctor to help her get better. A handsome, green-haired elven doctor named Taiti is introduced, looking confident and refined. But as Taiti walks through the lavish mansion, he internally sneers, thinking the rich nobles of the capital are such easy marks. He happily schemes to take their money for an incurable disease and just run away if they actually expect him to cure it. His plan is simple: charm the little kid, drain her family's funds, and get out. He reaches for her door. But as he touches the handle, a shockingly familiar energy stops him cold, an energy he hasn't felt in over 50 years. Creak. The door opens to reveal the little girl with the shadow of a terrifying dragon looming behind her as she says, "I've been waiting." Nope. The elf doctor immediately slams the door shut. He trembles in sheer terror, wondering why a dragon is here, only for her voice to calmly ask why he's closing the door. Seconds later, the smug elf is kneeling obediently before the small girl on the sofa. The girl asks if he knows who she is, and he frantically confirms her identity: Master Celis. The girl, now revealed to be the dragon Celis, smiles smugly, pleased that her powerful energy was recognized. Celis looks down at the elf doctor, calling him a promising brat, before confirming he's the new physician for this body. He commands the elf to call him by the body's name, Daphne, from now on, and the terrified doctor immediately agrees. Taiti is still baffled, quietly wondering why a great and powerful dragon is inhabiting the body of a small human child. Celis claims it's just for fun and to experience the world, an explanation Taiti eagerly accepts. Taiti fawns over him, gushing that only an elf could detect his hidden draconic power, while Celis just looks tired of the flattery. Getting down to business, Celis orders Taiti to cure this body of the black butterfly disease. Taiti questions the diagnosis, but Celis shuts him down, arrogantly asking if he's ever known him to make a mistake. Celis reveals that disease is a black magic curse that must be broken, realizing with a jolt that he was deliberately targeted. He clenches his small fist, pondering why this specific body was cursed. Taiti agrees that the girl herself did nothing to deserve it. Instead, he points toward a royal crest, explaining that the one responsible was the hero. A prophecy appears, foretelling that the rising sun has swallowed the setting night. The knight cries out in humiliation, vowing to extinguish the sun's light in an act of ultimate revenge. It's explained that in this prophecy, the sun represents the hero, while the knight signifies the black mages. This only confuses Celis further. Why target this one specific child? Tati asks if he's referring to the other children of the Acheon family, and Celis confirms, demanding to know why only this body was cursed. Tati smirks, realizing the great dragon entered this body completely blind. Celis bristles, but Tati insists he's not mocking him. Tati reveals that the hero has 4 children, showing portraits of the first 3, Lace, Vipera, and Arius. Then comes the bombshell. The other 3 are all adopted, making Daphne the hero's only biological child. Daphne is stunned, realizing this body was cursed and is now dying, all because of the hero. She explodes in fury, furious that the hero hasn't visited her once, only for Tati to calmly explain it's because he dislikes her. A tense silence fills the room as the small blonde girl faces off against the kneeling green-haired elf. Tati agrees with her anger, calling humans selfish for hating her after damning her to a cursed life. Radiating a golden aura of pure rage, Daphne declares a new mission. They're going to beat up that beast-like heroes bastard. A flashback reveals that the retainers of the duchy were never fond of heroes. They were loyal nobles, while Heroes was an illegitimate child who only became duke after being named a hero. Even after he took the title, a council of nobles remained deeply resentful of his authority. The imperial count formally voices his disapproval, challenging the duke's decision. He scolds the duke for opening the granaries to commoners during a famine, but an aide to the duke just seems tired of this argument. A gray-bearded man, Marquis Gayron, steps in, demanding to know what the count would have them do. Let the citizens starve? The count coldly suggests the starving people can forage in the dragon-ruled mountains, basically sentencing them to death. Wham! The Marquis slams the table, furious at the Count's heartless suggestion that being eaten by a dragon is just their fate. Heroes narrows his eyes as another aide clenches his fist, angered by a sarcastic dig at the Duke's past life on the streets. The Duke coolly reminds them of a time when peasants burned down a noble's manor, asking if they grasp his unsubtle threat. He delivers a final, chilling warning. Learn to compromise or lose your heads. Crack! He grips the armrest so tightly it shatters, while his aide mentally begs for just one meeting without total chaos. Bang! A sudden crash from the doorway makes the aide jump in surprise. It's Daphne, storming into the meeting with a look of pure determination, ready to cause some trouble. She looks directly at the man at the head of the table and announces, "It's been a while, hero." The council members are shocked as the tiny girl pops up over the massive table, confirming it's really the young lady. Whoosh! A teacup flies past the hero's head and shatters against the wall as the men cry out his title in alarm. Now standing on the table, Daphne furiously accuses him of giving birth to her on a whim. She stomps across the table towards him, declaring that his actions are the reason she was cursed. As she marches toward the hero, a glowing magical sigil of an owl materializes beneath her. The hero just smirks, his eyes glowing as he asks if now is really the time for her nagging. She retorts that he doesn't even deserve nagging, shatters a vase, and declares she came to start a war. With a surge of power, she grabs his collar, vowing to survive and kill him, but he grabs her wrist, promising he won't die either. After the confrontation, the grand meeting room stands empty and silent. The hero sits alone, lost in thought as he blankly stares at a red quill. The Marquis explains that the hero can't get angry. A curse from a dark sorcerer stripped him of all emotion. As the hero sits in quiet contemplation, the Marquis wonders what could possibly be going through his mind. In a flashback, a somber young Daphne is shown as the last remaining bloodline of the Acheon family. Born at the cost of another's life, she was fated from birth to suffer a curse and die an early death. This constant pain caused her to lash out in fits of rage, even striking the servants. Because of her uncontrollable behavior, the hero eventually had her moved to a separate residence. The Marquis recalls how everyone expected her to die there, but she returned from the brink only to cause utter chaos. He looks out the window with a slight smile, musing that his old age certainly won't be boring. Back in her room, Daphne is absolutely giddy, proclaiming how satisfying it was to watch the chaos unfold. She turns around with a bright, innocent smile, looking completely harmless. Thinking his job is done, Tati cheerfully asks for permission to leave. Her sweet expression instantly sours into a dark, menacing glare. He's not going anywhere. Panicked, Tati tries to backpedal, claiming he'd devote his life to her, but alas, he has other contracts. She shuts him down with a simple, "You talk too damn much," and he immediately promises to be quiet. She reminds him it wasn't the curse that killed her, it was murder. Tati breaks out in a cold sweat. He nervously asks if she expects him to find the killer, offering to connect her with an intel guild, but nothing more. Thinking he's off the hook, he gushes about her graciousness, only for her to demand he make her a potion instead. Her first request, a powerful potion to restore her strength. Tati holds up his medical bag, pointing out he's a doctor, not an alchemist, but her twitching fist makes him rethink his position. He immediately switches gears, waving brightly and declaring himself a pharmacist as of today. "Good boy," she says, pleased.
Grumble, Daphne crosses her arms, complaining that it's too late to be changing her major now.
She lets out a small, satisfied smile, pleased with her new direction.
Dressed in a new floral gown, she walks with quiet determination. Her maids gossip, wondering why she isn't mad, and noting with surprise that not a single thing has been broken since she woke up. One maid recalls Daphne calling them stiff, which is funny because the maid is only 25. The maid reports that Daphne went to the training grounds alone, speculating that she's trying to get her father's attention. Another maid adds that Daphne crashed a meeting and was heard muttering about taking revenge on the hero in her sleep. The maids completely misread the situation, concluding she wants her father's approval and deciding to make her snacks. At the training grounds, Daphne sits cross-legged, her eyes wide with a shocking realization. She's discovered this body has 0 mana due to the curse and resolves to draw out the draconic power from her soul. She pulls out a shining crystal from her pouch, announcing she's found it. It's the mana stone Tati infused for her, and she plans to consume it directly, a method that would horrify anyone else. Gasp! The moment she does, she's racked with agonizing pain as dark energy engulfs her. Forcing herself to focus, she carefully guides the swirling mana through her blocked veins, one step at a time. Just as she thinks she's about to succeed, a wave of agony hits her, and she cries out. Kech, hack, blech. She violently coughs up a pool of thick, black liquid. A notification appears. Her mana vessel has been formed. Exhausted but triumphant, she realizes it actually worked.
She proudly declares her own amazingness with a cheerful laugh. Looking at the black residue on her chin, she pauses thoughtfully. She carefully places a fragment of the crystal into a vial, deciding to have Tati examine it later. As she daydreams about swallowing the hero family whole, Gugh! Someone strikes her hard from behind. Whirling around in a rage, she demands to know who dared to hit her. A red-haired boy with his arms crossed stands before her, demanding to know why she's in the training yard. It's Arius Akion, the second son, and he coldly calls her bad luck and tells her to get out. Daphne clenches her fists, annoyed, and asks what's with his attitude. Arius just scoffs, telling her she still looks like she's on death's door. He continues to mock her, saying all she's good for is throwing tantrums and cursing people. He suggests they trade hits, but before he can finish, pow! She decks him, sending him flying. Stunned, he asks if she just hit him. She calmly points out he hit her first, so it's only fair. Outraged, he clutches his face and yells, asking how she could possibly hit her own brother. She looks at him with utter disdain and repeats the word, brother? She then explodes, declaring she's never had such a rude brother like him. Celis reflects on his lonely past as a death god, admitting he never understood the concept of family. So he disguised himself as a mortal to secretly observe human households. He saw that no matter how much they fought, families always ate together and never truly ignored one another. Even when they were upset, they always found a way to reconcile. The memories of simple family kindness flashed through his mind. Back in the present, she coldly tells Arius he never visited her while she was dying and orders him to leave. He glares down at her, reminding her that she's a part of the Akion family. He flicks her forehead, calling her a disgrace and telling her to get lost. Ah! She responds by biting his finger. He shrieks that she's crazy, but she just snaps back that his fingers were getting a little too familiar. He gets fired up, asking if she wants a real fight, while she just smiles sweetly, taunting him. Enraged, he raises his hand to strike her down. Suddenly, a man with silver hair appears. The Knight Commander, Lloyd. Arius is annoyed by the interruption, wondering who this guy is. He mentally calls Daphne hopeless for forgetting the Knight Commander's face, while she just finds all the shouting noisy. Lloyd bluntly tells Arius he wasn't fighting. He was just getting beaten up one-sidedly, much to Arius's fury. The Knight Commander steps between them, putting a stop to the conflict. Lloyd expresses his disappointment, and Daphne internally regrets not getting one more hit in. He questions them for fighting on sacred ground without swords, leaving Daphne utterly baffled. Daphne just smirks, wondering to herself what kind of messed up household this even is. Arius smugly holds his wooden sword, declaring that it serves her right and fighting a novice would be no fun anyway. Taking the sword, Daphne fires back that he's not fit to be her brother, causing him to yell in outrage. With a bright, taunting smile, she tells him he's noisy and to just come at her already. The Knight Commander, Lloyd, watches on silently with his arms crossed, saying nothing. He briefly wonders if he went too far by intervening, but then reminds himself her behavior has been completely out of line. He recalls her constant rampages, tormenting maids and knights, earning her the title Blemish of the Family, as a flashback shows her pulling a maid's hair. He continues, "Not once has she repented." His thoughts continue, listing her recent chaos, crashing a meeting, disrupting the training grounds. The problems just keep piling up. He thinks that since Lord Arius is kind, he'll probably just give her a light scolding. But watching her, he's stunned into silence, realizing she's not just a spoiled brat, as other knights look on in shock. He turns his head with a quick snap, suddenly noticing the other knights staring and asking what's going on. Looking back at Daphne, he's shocked to see that her stance with the sword is absolutely flawless. In a flashback, a black-haired man named Celis casually swings a sword, musing that swinging a sword is, well, just swinging it. His companion, a solemn old man with a white beard, listens quietly. Whack! The old man smacks Celis on the head, yelling that even a dragon can't disrespect his precious sword, making Celis cry out in pain. Nursing a fresh bump, Celis is stunned that the human hit him, calling it the dragon's first bonk. The old man offers to teach him what a sword truly is. When the old man asks if he dislikes the idea, Celis internally scoffs, thinking he's a dragon and far too powerful to need swordsmanship. But as he looks at the old man, he's intrigued by the sheer conviction in his eyes. Celis agrees to the training with a threat to bite the man's head off if he fails, and so begins his harsh swordsmanship lessons, with the old man yelling at him to fix his posture. The old man relentlessly pushes him, mocking the dragon's strength, while Celis yells back about species discrimination before being ordered to do 3,000 more slashes. Exhausted on the ground, Celis asks his human teacher if he's finally getting close to becoming a swordmaster. The old man bluntly tells the greedy lizard he's got another 100 years to go, much to Celis's annoyance. But the man tells him to get up, vowing to see the stupid reptile become a swordmaster, even as Celis protests he just sat down. Looking back, Celis admits that, despite the hardship, he didn't hate that life. The training was worth it, and being with someone who didn't hate him brought him a joy he'd never imagined. A year passes, and an eager Celis bursts in, excitedly asking his human what they'll be learning today. He cheerfully approaches the bed, telling the old man to wake up because he's in a great mood. As he reaches for the old man's hand, excited to finally become an expert knight, his smile fades as he senses something is terribly wrong. He looks at his still, silent teacher and asks the heartbreaking question, "You are dead?" Staring at the old man's peaceful but lifeless face, the reality sinks in as he asks again, "Seriously dead?" He can only stand there, looking out the window in silent, dawning horror. He grieves, wondering how the man could die so suddenly after promising to see him become a swordmaster when he was so close. Drip. A single, salty tear rolls down his cheek, a silent testament to his profound loss. By a lonely tombstone, he reflects that while he didn't understand the tears, he finally understood one thing. He embraces the gravestone, realizing he truly digs humans and that he is a terribly lonely being, leaving flowers, just as he saw humans do. For decades, he trained alone in the mountains to forget his grief, until he could see a human grave without crying. Back in the present, Daphne smirks, channeling that ancient skill as she expertly holds the wooden sword. Arius watches in disbelief as she raises her weapon, barely getting out the words, "You dare." Her eyes burn with draconic fury as she screams, "Don't underestimate me, you foolish human." Clang! Their training swords collide with a force that shocks everyone watching. A narration confirms her stance is flawless as she grits her teeth, holding her ground against her brother. Arius is completely stunned, his eyes wide with shock at the sheer power behind her heavy strike. But just as she has the advantage, a narration notes a critical weakness, and Daphne looks suddenly confused. She suddenly stumbles forward, her strength vanishing, as Arius looks on, baffled. Thud. She collapses face first onto the training grounds, leaving the knights and her brother utterly perplexed. A stamina depletion notice appears as she curses her weak body for giving out after overexerting herself. Lloyd is left completely dazed, asking if he really just witnessed that, while another knight can only stammer in confusion. Arius, however, is absolutely fuming, yelling in disbelief that a little kid could swing a sword so perfectly. He seethes, remembering that everyone said she had never even held a sword before in her life. He grits his teeth, realizing with horror that her vertical slash was better than his, even after his 3 years of dedicated training. A man with white and dark hair urgently tells his captain to call a physician and move her. Her father holds the sleeping Daphne, thinking he refuses to be overtaken by a brat like her. The scene shifts to the grand ducal estate as a voice asks if the lady's feeling dizzy. 2 maids frantically check on Daphne, asking if she wants to break something, but she tells them to knock it off, insisting she's fine. In a cute chibi flashback, the maids reflect on how long she was unconscious, with one admitting she knew Daphne wouldn't like their fussing. Daphne compares her pathetic new stats to her maxed-out dragon form, wondering how on earth you're supposed to do stamina training before getting an idea. A maid informs her that the knight commander wishes to see her, and Daphne internally brands him a psycho bastard. But she quickly changes her tune, deciding that, as a commander, he must be strong, a perfect tool for her plans. The knight commander arrives, sitting at the edge of her bed as she waits for him to speak. He explains that he's come because he has something he must ask her. In a quick flashback, she remembers thinking that her new body has never learned how to do something before. The knight commander is stunned by her response, realizing she must be a true natural. He rushes her through techniques, and she immediately masters each one. But Daphne admits there's just one tiny problem. She complains that her body is so pathetic it collapses after a single sword swing, and asks him how to increase her stamina and strength. He thinks of her as a beautiful flower in a cracked vase. Her talent is immense, but her body is too fragile, so she must prioritize preservation. He apologizes for speaking out of turn and prepares to leave so she can rest. She's absolutely livid, seething at how he dared to compare the great and powerful her to a mere hero. With eyes burning with rage, she vows to surpass the hero, even if this frail body shatters in the process. The training begins, with Daphne huffing and puffing at top speed, telling her maids to pipe down. She collapses after half a lap, but sees her stamina went up by 1 point, and now she can't stop. Suddenly, a red-haired boy with a wooden sword tells her to stop, pointing out that her maids look like they're about to cry. She checks her status window again and is thrilled to see her stamina is up to 30 and strength is at 4. She hums a happy tune, wondering if her revenge plot is going to be over way too soon at this rate. She reflects that the medicine from Taiti must be helping, even with the warning of side effects, as her stamina is building much faster now. As she muses about picking up a sword soon, a voice calls her name, startling her. Wham! The Knight Commander suddenly appears, asking if she realizes she's been running for half a month straight. She tells him she's exhausted and to get lost, but he just laughs, calling her remarkable, leaving her to wonder why he's being so friendly all of a sudden. He explains that the knight's morale has skyrocketed since she started training, and for that, he's grateful. Daphne is completely baffled, asking what on earth her training has to do with the knights. He says that seeing their frail lady train relentlessly has motivated them all, and the whole atmosphere has improved. She looks over at the training grounds and realizes he's right. It used to be empty at dawn, but now it's packed. The Knight Commander chuckles, saying it's a bit pathetic they need a child for motivation, but that's just how it is. His sudden comment catches her completely off guard. His tone darkens as he reveals that most people think she has an incurable disease. But the truth is, she's cursed, forced to suffer an injustice she'll never understand. He kneels down to look her in the eye, the air growing heavy with his words. He admits it's a rude thing to say to someone fated to die, but he truly hopes she can overcome it. He mutters to himself that with her current determination, it feels like she actually might, before dismissing his own nonsense. Daphne gives a bright, cheerful smile, looking full of life. That smile quickly turns into a devious, determined smirk. Back on the training grounds, she's face down in the dirt, her soul literally escaping her body after 16 laps, wondering if she should call it a day. But the red-haired boy shows up again, scolding her for skipping out and demanding they spar. He wants a rematch to finish their last fight, but she just looks at him, exhausted and covered in dirt. She flat out refuses, collapsing back onto the ground and demanding to know if he's blind to the state she's in. She reminds him that he knows her stamina is garbage, and she's completely wiped from running laps. The boy stammers at a total loss for words. Her eyes suddenly flash with insight. The boy is confused. He sensed she was stronger, but couldn't see it. He then has a shocking thought. Did an 8-year-old just notice his subtle observation? She acknowledges that he's not wrong. The son of the hero would notice, but admits her improvements aren't nearly enough yet. He desperately insists they practice, even if she just matches his form, but she coldly asks if he can't understand a simple no. Blushing and clenching his fists, the boy yells that he just wants to see her stance. With a mischievous grin, she looks at the blushing red-haired boy and calls him a little rascal. She looks away, flustered, claiming it was just an expression, while he tells her she should have just asked for lessons. A brilliant idea hits her, and she brightly offers to teach him herself. She holds out her hand, demonstrating what he should say. Teach me. Daphne declares that if he asks, she will teach him, leaving Arius red-faced and sputtering in disbelief. He scoffs at the idea of learning from her, and she coolly tells him to enjoy his awful sword form for the rest of his life. As her words hit him like daggers, she warns that bad habits stick forever, and she's leaving if he won't learn. Defeated, Arius clenches his fist and reluctantly mumbles for her help. She playfully cups her ear, pretending not to hear his mouse-like mumble, and prepares to walk away. Finally losing it, Arius yells for her to help him and warns her not to back out of their deal. She smiles sweetly, saying it was that simple from the start, while he internally questions how this younger girl is acting like an adult. Getting straight to business, she tells him to raise his sword so she can check his form, and he nervously agrees. She immediately barks corrections at him, telling him to fix his back, straighten his arm, and put more power into his swing. Arius snaps back in frustration, asking how he's supposed to copy her just by listening, while she stares at him, thoroughly unimpressed. She admits he has a point and says that since she's rested up, she can manage a few demonstrations. Watch closely, she commands, unleashing a powerful and precise swing with the wooden sword. Arius can only stare in awe, his mind reeling at her perfect stance and questioning how a 5-year-old could possess such skill. He concludes that her overwhelming talent can only be explained by one thing, her powerful bloodline. Suddenly, his train of thought is broken by the sound of Daphne coughing violently. Cough. He watches in horror as she collapses to her knees, spitting blood into her hand. Arius panics and yells for a doctor, but she grits her teeth, wondering why her body is failing her again. She recalls the sleepy elf, Tati, warning her there would be side effects to the healing process. In the flashback, she asks what kind of symptoms, and Tati vaguely says it depends on her condition. He'd casually guessed it would be like a bit of indigestion. She now realizes his idea of indigestion is coughing up blood, and silently curses the quack elf. Lying in bed, she glares at the ceiling, looking pale but furious. From outside, she can be seen resting in her lavish room. With a fierce grimace, she decides her first order of business is to hunt down that damn elf. A system window scans her stats, revealing her health has jumped by 20 points. Much to her surprise, a vision of a smug Tati appears, and Daphne begrudgingly admits he's not a total fraud, deciding to put his execution on hold. Feeling her newfound strength, she clenches her fists with a cheerful and determined expression. Her path is immediately blocked by 3 knights, who sternly tell her she may not proceed. The lead knight reminds her that she collapsed just yesterday and warns her against overworking herself. She brushes him off, but he grabs her arm, insisting they can't let her pass for her own safety. She becomes irritated. Her eyes flash with cold fury as she asks if he truly dares to block her path. The knight flinches at her murderous glare, but steels himself, convinced he's acting for her own well-being. One knight smacks another, whispering that letting her defeat them is the only way to make her go back. She looks at the terrified knights and calmly asks if this is truly their wish. Gia! With a sinister smile, she draws a real sword and promises a painless end, causing the knights to scream in terror.
She coldly asks if they intend to disobey a direct order, and the knights break down in tears, insisting they were only worried. Elsewhere, a group of knights stand at attention before a silver-haired man. A gray-haired man in a green uniform states that he has the Grand Duke's permission to borrow some men. The silver-haired man scoffs, questioning the urgency of a hunting trip and stating the Duke never approved such a trivial request. He firmly states that he and the vice captain are busy with Arius's training and won't be available for at least a month. The man in green sneers, dismissing the training as foolish compared to their master's needs. Sword in hand, Daphne realizes the argument is over reassigning knights from Arius to some count's son. She sighs at the pathetic nature of humans, but decides it's not her problem to solve. As the knights depart, Arius is seen watching from the edge of the training hall. He peeks out from behind a large stone pillar, a somber look on his face. He overhears cruel gossip, dismissing him as a commoner's son who will be kicked out once the Duke is gone. The man in green smirks at the silver-haired knight and asks if he's done, but the knight coolly replies, "Not yet." The gossiping man jumps in shock, stammering as he asks why the young lady is here. "Why?" Daphne coldly replies that since they were holding a wake for her, she had to show up. The man sweats bullets as she dares him to finish his last words, which she promises to hear out. The silver-haired knight steps in to defend the boy, while a close-up on a tearful Arius confirms his name is Arius Acheon. As Arius watches from behind a pillar, the knight firmly declares that the boy is unequivocally a child of the house of Acheon. Daphne flashes a downright terrifying grin, daring them to continue their denial and offering to personally arrange their meeting with the hero. The gossiping men immediately panic and apologize, while Arius peeks out from his hiding spot, completely stunned. She lectures them on their poor discipline, asking what the point of punishment is if a simple apology fixes everything, leaving them speechless. With a dark, menacing aura, she gives her final order. "Your heads, on the ground." The men are now doing headstands as Daphne and the silver-haired knight watch, while two birds on a branch wonder what the weird humans are doing. A closer look shows the men trembling as they struggle to maintain their bizarre punishment. The silver-haired knight blushes, praising her, but she cuts him off, reminding him he was just as timid before this. She scoffs, thinking all humans are pathetic and wondering why they're so obsessed with status and discrimination. Just as she vows to never let the weak be bullied in her presence, a voice suddenly calls out her name. She turns to see Arius standing there, holding a bouquet of white lilies. He tosses the flowers to her, asking when she arrived, leaving her completely baffled. In a cute chibi moment, a blushing Arius explains he's simply heard she was up and about. Clinging to the flowers, he shyly confesses that he's never once been ashamed of being adopted. A warm memory shows a younger Arius being embraced by his beautiful blonde-haired mother. He admits that while he was always proud of his name, hearing the knights mock him today as disposable had shaken his resolve. He reveals his deepest fear, that he's just a nameless peasant child, and that his father secretly feels the same way. Bathed in a golden light, Arius finds a moment of clarity and resolve after his confession. From a nearby doorway, Daphne watches him with a surprised and wide-eyed expression. He turns toward her, his face flushed, but with a soft, genuine smile. He sheepishly admits that he's done his fair share of wrong things too. He stammers, trying to suggest that maybe it's time for her to stop doing crazy stuff. She looks thoroughly unamused, her face contorted in annoyance as she wonders what nonsense he's spouting now. He quickly backtracks, saying it's nothing, and simply thanks her instead. "I'll take the flowers then," she says, accepting his gesture as he agrees. Holding the bouquet, she offers him some surprisingly sage advice about apologizing immediately to maintain true pride. She smiles, adding that true pride also comes from the resolve to never repeat the same mistake. Offering him a single lily, she tells him that pride is the foundation of who you are. She beams, a genuine, radiant smile spreading across her face. Arius accepts the flower, but can't help but admit that while she's right, hearing it from her is still incredibly annoying. Daphne reflects that in her past life, everything was always her fault, concluding words are useless. But then she relents and apologizes. Arius is floored. He quickly apologizes back for causing her to overexert herself and promises to be more considerate in the future. For the first time, someone has actually accepted her words, leaving her stunned and wondering if this new life will truly be different. Nearby, the silver-haired knight and another guard watch the two, remarking on how close they've become. Time has passed, and a status window shows Daphne Achion's stats have improved, with her stamina now at 70. Feeling her new strength, she grins, thinking it's about time for a spar, and deciding to challenge Arius later. A flashback reveals that while she once found Arius's constant chattering annoying, she's now starting to find it fun. His words help her ignore the nagging feeling in the back of her head. She blushingly realizes it feels strangely empty when he's not around, concluding that this must be what people call bonding. A voice calls her name, and she turns around, annoyed, asking what the person wants now. It's a green-haired man, shaking pitifully as he does a push-up with Daphne sitting on his back, who orders him to hold still. In a rapid-fire argument, she berates Tati for not warning her about the medicine's side effects. He claims she ignored his explanation, then quickly apologizes. Fed up, she demands to know where the elf is. Furious, he's ignored her summons 3 times. She declares that if the elf keeps running away, she'll just have to learn summoning magic herself to hunt him down. Taiti suddenly appears, frantically claiming he was just busy making potions, but Daphne coldly threatens to kill him for talking back. The elf bursts into tears, wailing that she's barbaric and that he hates her. Pitiful. Taiti then has a complete meltdown, blaming a nasty elf inside him for his words and yelling at himself. Daphne can only stare, thinking he's the craziest person she's ever met. Now sporting a bandage, Taiti complains about her ignoring him for over a month, and Daphne retorts that it's a fair price for what he did. With a chilling glare, she threatens to cut his life water in half, which instantly strikes fear into his heart. The scene explains that for elves, life water is the very essence of their being, like a heart. This life water provides mana, connects them to nature, and without it, they are rejected by nature itself. Cut off from nature, an elf becomes powerless. Taiti, shaking, desperately pleads with Daphne, willing to accept any other punishment, but begs her not to take his life water. Whap! As Daphne kicks him, Tidy frantically insists he wasn't lying about being busy making medicine, claiming he's completely swamped. Daphne coldly asks why she should have to help him regain his power, leaving Tidy confused. She thinks that since there's a limit to how much mana he can train alone, she'll just have to stuff hers into him. Yeah. A small panel shows him being force-fed mana by a dragon-shaped funnel, and he wonders if it's weird to give dragon mana to an elf. He forces a laugh and agrees to bring the mana stones next time, but Daphne calmly demands he bring 100. Tidy panics, explaining how hard 100 mana stones are to get, and that his own mana has limits. She menacingly asks if he'd like her to test those limits personally. With a dark aura swirling around him, Tidy grimly decides he'll have to dip into his emergency funds, while Daphne watches. His mood suddenly brightens as he remembers the potion he brought with him. He explains that while he's working on several potions, he brought his one success, a purple concoction that nullifies Lady Daphne's curse and amplifies her original power. The only catch, he nervously adds, is that it doesn't last long. Daphne immediately asks just how short they're talking. Around 10 seconds, he says with a wide, cheesy grin, holding up all 10 fingers. After a moment of silence, Daphne gives a single order. Do it. Instantly, Tidy is back in a headstand, shouting, "Yes, ma'am," while the birds on a nearby branch wonder if this is the latest trend. As they walk through a pleasant forest, Tidy asks where they are. A map reveals their location, the Inchiha Mountains, at the border of the Grand Duke's territory. Touching a tree, Daphne realizes this is where elves live, which explains the familiar energy she's sensing. She complains that because of a useless elf, she had to come all this way for training, considering replacing him. Tidy fawns over her, asking if he isn't her most loyal servant, but she coldly replies that slave is a more fitting title. She sits down to begin her mana training, ordering him to guard the area and warning that she might go berserk if disturbed. Tidy quietly grumbles to himself that now he has to guard her on top of training her dragon mana. As she meditates in a blue aura, he observes that she doesn't even know the family name properly, concluding she likely didn't possess this body on purpose. He sighs, admitting he can never figure out what goes on in her head. Or maybe, he muses, there's nothing but muscle up there. At that moment, a chibi Daphne scratches her ear, wondering why it's so itchy. Tidy sheds a single tear, lamenting his fate of being stuck with this psycho dragon. A single leaf drifts down, landing gently on her hair as she concentrates. A notification reveals her mana has increased by 8. She stretches, deeming the progress not bad. "Are you done?" she asks, and Tidy confirms that's enough training for today. Kya! Without warning, she attacks, sending Tidy flying while he pleads for mercy. He then calmly offers her a piggyback ride back. Suddenly, Tidy stops, noting that he hears a human screaming. Daphne casually dismisses it, asking, "So what?" Tidy suggests they leave before things get noisy and tries to hurry her away, but she remains silent and unmoving. She shakes her head, muttering that this is why she despises his kind. Selfish and clumsy. A confused Tidy asks what she means. "I mean, I'll go save them," she declares, leaving Tidy utterly shocked that she would help humans.
Her eyes narrow with deadly intent as she clutches a small dagger, her decision made. A narration explains the principle of causality, where every cause has a corresponding effect. For example, if a divine gold dragon destroys an empire for sport, the scales of causality deem it a righteous act. But Celis, the black dragon, known only as the Calamity, is judged as pure evil. The Calamity endured this judgment until one day she made a choice. The scene shifts to Daphne approaching a group of bandits attacking travelers, and their eye patch-wearing leader spots her. Huh? The bandits are baffled by her sudden appearance, wondering what a child is doing alone in the mountains. Guessing she's a noble from her clothes, Daphne ignores them and calmly counts her targets, 13 in total. One of the bandits menacingly suggests she come with them so they can sell her somewhere nice. Well then, she replies, let's deal with you lot first. The ambushed travelers scream for the little girl to run while they hold off the bandits, but they're quickly overwhelmed. The bandit leader, tired of waiting, orders his men to grab the brat. As a wounded guard weakly tells her to run, a bandit reaches for her, mocking the pathetic humans. Daphne internally agrees, thinking them worthless ants. But it is precisely because they are so weak that she cannot abandon them. She drinks the purple potion, her eyes glowing with power, as she declares that she, the Great One, will be their savior. A young man checks on his injured guildmaster, who insists he's fine, but looks on in shock. The guildmaster stares at the battlefield, wondering if he's hallucinating, as Daphne stands alone amidst 13 defeated bandits. He can't believe it. They were about to lose the Grand Duke's relics and die, but this child appeared and wiped out their attackers in an instant. Holding a toy wooden sword, she glares at a cowering bandit, mocking him for begging to be spared by a child. Hick, stop! As she kicks the crying man, she scolds him for the disgrace of being beaten by a kid. The guildmaster realizes her martial arts are just as deadly as a sword. He marvels that she took down 13 trained men in under 10 seconds, a feat he finds unbelievable even after witnessing it himself. The guildmaster muses that while her speech is common, her impossible skill and blonde hair hint at something more. He puts it all together and asks if she's Lady Daphne Acchion. She eyes him suspiciously, asking how he knows her name. He confirms it, introducing himself as Edhurt, Guildmaster of the Golden Chalice Guild, and calls it an honor to meet the treasured jewel of House Acchion. He excitedly grabs her hands, thanking her for saving their lives. Daphne looks completely bewildered by the sudden gratitude. He insists they would have all died without her. She's utterly confused, wondering why on earth he's thanking her. Beaming with joy, Edhurt emotionally declares he will never forget this debt. In a flashback, the dragon Celis remembers that in all her centuries of saving humans from tidal waves, not one ever thanked her. She wonders if possessing a human body has somehow changed the very laws of causality. As the rescued travelers shower her with thanks, she considers that maybe now she can finally live an ordinary life. With a small, hopeful smile, she thinks that maybe escaping the curse of causality was this simple all along. The elf Tidy suddenly appears, snapping her out of her thoughts and telling her this is no time for reflection. Why not? She asks. He points out that she just took medicine and used magic. She casually replies, and He warns her that once the potion's effect wears off, suddenly she starts coughing up blood. As she collapses, Tidy smugly reminds her he warned against drug abuse, while the others rush to help her. Acute Chibi notes that the group was attacked as soon as they entered the mountain path. Elsewhere, a serious-looking aide with glasses holds a report. The aide reports to a blonde man with a scar that the attackers knew about the Akion family relic. The scarred man suspects an inside job, but the aide dismisses it, saying only the guild and vice master knew. The scarred man wonders how the ambush was planned. The aide reports the guild master claims ignorance and asks if they should question the vice master as well. The aide continues, stating the guild master has offered a full refund for the failed commission, given that a duke's relic was involved. He also offered to pay for a new mercenary group and let the duke decide the merchant's fate. The scarred man signs a document. The aide adds that, according to the guildmaster, Lady Daphne defeated the bandits with a wooden sword. The duke finds it unbelievable, but the aide confirms the story. The duke rests his hand on an ornate box, puzzled as to why Daphne would save them. He gives an order: interrogate the captured bandits and then report the findings to the guildmaster. As the duke gets up to leave, his aide asks where he's going. He doesn't answer, simply leaning against a large, ornate door in silent thought. His mind drifts. I had a dream, he thinks, remembering a city engulfed in flames, terrorized by a dragon. The dream continues from the dragon's perspective. A village was burning, but the nearby lake was too small to douse it, and ice magic would harm the humans. There had to be another way. So the dragon roared, ordering the humans to flee their homes immediately. She promised to protect them with her magic and that they would live, but the villagers just cowered inside their burning houses. Even using amplification magic, she pleaded with them, but not a single human came out. A dark-haired man enters one of the charred buildings. He discovers a couple who died in an embrace just inside the door, lamenting that they would have survived if they'd only taken a single step outside. Standing in the desolate doorway, he sadly repeats, "They could have lived." The narrator concludes that it was then she finally accepted that she was a calamity, incapable of saving anyone. The dream shatters, and Daphne is startled back to the present. The people she rescued are weeping with joy, promising to never forget their debt of gratitude. Surrounded by their heartfelt thanks, Daphne stands in a daze, overwhelmed by an emotion she's never experienced. Her thoughts race. She can't tell if her past life or this one is the dream, but either way, the bond of causality feels broken. Waking up with a headache, she decides she'll figure it out later, starting with that shady elf, Tati. She finds her father, the Duke, sitting in her room. He calmly notes she's awake, and she grumbles that she's already in a bad mood. "What do you want?" she snaps, telling him to get out. He simply states that he's been curious about something. Oh, cringe. In a tiny panel, she realizes she was just caught reading the wrong book. He cuts to the chase, saying he'll leave after she answers 2 questions. She scoffs, finding it fascinating he'd prioritize business over his daughter's health after she nearly died. He coldly asks if they were ever an affectionate family, reminding her that she's the one who refused to acknowledge him as her father. He explains that he's treating her as a stranger, not his daughter, but the offer to be his daughter again is always open. The word daughter
makes her see red. "Don't call me that," she snarls. He calmly agrees. Deciding to get this over with, she asks what he's so curious about. He gestures to the relic box for his first question. The camera focuses on the intricate white and gold box, gleaming with a holy light. He explains it's a gift from the dragons, a family heirloom. He offers to show her, but she's disgusted. She risked her life for garbage? No thanks. He moves on to his second question. Why did she save the merchants? Her answer is simple. Bad guys were attacking them, so I saved them. He's not satisfied. He warns her that just because won't fly with the Grand Duke's investigators, and they'll come questioning her soon. Daphne snaps back at her father, annoyed that he's bothering her, while insisting it's the duty of the strong to protect the weak. Her father recalls her words because it's natural, a hint of confusion on his face. He remembers her cruel past, firing a maid for stepping on her shadow and threatening the chef with a knife. He can see the black curse still festering in her chest, even though she seems physically fine. But she just dismisses him, saying she needs to rest, leaving him to wonder if she's really changed at all. He warns her not to scheme anything wicked, but his mind flashes back to a time she screamed that he was at fault for her mother's death. At least she's not throwing a tantrum this time, he thinks, as he offers her a small, ornate box. She eyes the box with suspicion, asking why he's giving her a relic, but curiosity gets the better of her. Inside is the White Lion's lamp, a glowing artifact he says will help restore her stamina while she sleeps. He tells her it's hers since she saved it, then turns to leave, simply telling her to rest well. Holding the lamp, Daphne grumbles that even his gift sounds rude, muttering about how frustrating humans are. The scene shifts to a luxurious salon, known for its desserts, which secretly houses a gambling den where nobles trade information. A hooded figure asks a man if the Grand Duke has identified the thieves who stole the relic. Another guest explains that the culprit refused to talk, even under torture, baffled by their resolve. A noblewoman with a fan comments that the Grand Duke must be frustrated, since the thieves escaped without a trace. She leans in, slyly suggesting that perhaps someone else was responsible for wiping out the gang. The man realizes the rumor of the gang's defeat is already out and wonders how the information leaked. Other nobles chime in, begging to hear the full story, insisting nothing beats an eyewitness account. The man smirks, knowing he holds valuable information, as someone pours him a drink. It's the hooded figure, offering him a bottle of rare, 30-year-old liquor to loosen his tongue. Seeing how eager they are, the storyteller agrees to tell them everything. Setting his glass down, he begins, explaining that their caravan was fine until it reached the Acheon territory. The noblewoman gasps, recognizing the name of the elite on-hole mercenary company, a unit of master swordsmen. He confirms the mercenaries were escorting the prince, but were wiped out in an instant by just over 10 bandits. The table is in shock, with one man commenting on the enemy's incredible strength, as the storyteller admits he thought it was the end. But then he dramatically raises his hand. At that very moment, he joyfully recounts how a small child appeared out of nowhere and flattened the bandits with a wooden sword. The listeners are floored, unable to believe a little girl with a toy sword defeated over 10 men,
and they demand to know who she was. It was Daphne, shown in a flashback, grabbing a bandit's collar with a look of pure fury. The noblewoman asks if Lady Daphne, rumored to be frail, has finally recovered her health. The storyteller replies that she is stronger than anyone can imagine, before clarifying that she was not the one who defeated the bandits. The storyteller explains that right after the fight, she coughed up blood and collapsed, with the elf physician saying she'd pushed herself too far. The hooded figure realizes the rumors are true. The delinquent lady rescued the caravan despite being ill and has genuinely changed. When asked if he knows why she changed, the storyteller admits he has no idea. The hood comes down, revealing a red-eyed man named Lord Celis, who smiles, pleased with what he's heard. Back at the mansion, the maid Anne bursts into Daphne's room, ecstatically waving a letter. She finds Daphne floating upside down in a swirl of dark energy, complaining she feels like she's going to bleed to death, and Anne screams in horror. Daphne recalls being bedridden with severe muscle pain for 3 days after beating up the bandits. Now, feeling better, she credits her quick recovery to practicing mana breathing, even while she was stuck in bed. She's still suspicious of the relic her father gave her, but turns her attention to Anne, asking what the commotion is about. Anne excitedly presents the letter. A ball invitation from none other than the Marquis Finch. While Anne dances with joy, Daphne deadpans, asking what's so special about an invitation. It's her first one in half a year, Anne explains, which leaves Daphne completely baffled. Anne has to remind her about the time she flipped a tea table and stormed out of a party last year. And that's not all. The flashback shows more. Realizing she still has a long way to go to fix her reputation, Daphne tells Anne to put the letter away and asks if there's any news from Tight Tea. She impatiently recalls threatening the elf to get her a powerful potion in 3 days, frustrated that she can't just make it herself like in her past life. Clenching her fist, she wonders how she'll ever get her revenge if she's stuck growing stronger at such a slow pace. With renewed determination, she tells Anne to get her ready to go out. Dressed in a sharp, new outfit, Daphne looks ready for business. She creeps through a storage room, spotting a valuable item and wondering why it's just sitting there, completely unguarded. Daphne holds a glowing blue crystal, thinking jackpot, convinced it will boost her mana. She looks up, surprised to find more of the same blue crystals scattered around the courtyard. Overjoyed, she gathers the crystals, crediting her incredible luck to her greatness. Holding her third crystal, she pauses, hearing a noise from behind a pillar. Bam! As a green-haired girl tries to say hello, Daphne shoves a crystal into her mouth, yelling that she scared her. The green-haired girl writhes in pain on the ground as Daphne accuses her of luring her into a shady alley. Whimpering, the girl argues that hitting an innocent person is too much, but Daphne just looks annoyed. Daphne demands to know who she is, claiming the girl startled her first. The green-haired girl is left speechless. The green-haired girl stammers that it's understandable Daphne doesn't remember her since she rarely leaves her room. She tearfully adds that she thought Daphne would at least remember her, but Daphne just looks confused. With a burst of emotion, the green-haired girl declares, "I'm your sister, Daphne." The close-up shows the green-haired sister, her eyes welling with tears. A brief interlude shows a purple-haired woman and a chibi witch, pausing the story for a moment. The green-haired girl timidly asks if Daphne has forgotten her name as well. She nervously explains, "It's been a while," and it's become hard for her to interact with people. She sadly thinks it might be better to be forgotten and alone, prompting Daphne to wonder if anyone in her family is normal. The green-haired girl finally gets to the point. She came to ask Daphne for a favor.
She hesitantly asks if Daphne could let her meet the elf who serves as her doctor.
Daphne immediately agrees, leaving her sister stunned and speechless, holding a stack of papers she prepared to persuade her. Daphne stands silently, arms crossed, waiting for her sister to process the quick yes. A flashback begins, showing the green-haired girl remembering Daphne calling her hair the color of dirty ditch water. The cruel memory continues, with a younger Daphne telling her it's disgusting and that she was subjected to verbal abuse every single day. The narration says Daphne acted as if it was natural to hurt people, but the girl recalls her mother saying her hair was pretty, like a forest. It made her realize that Daphne was just being mean. She remembers trying to care for Daphne after their mother's death, only to be screamed at and told to get lost. After another of Daphne's tantrums, a maid checks on the green-haired girl, now called Lady Vipera, who insists she's okay. The narration explains that no matter how cruel Daphne was, Vipera could never refuse her. A text box reveals that after their mother's death, Vipera was just a commoner's adopted child. She closes her eyes, cherishing the memories she shared with her mother. Her room was her private sanctuary, a castle where no one, especially not Daphne, ever came. Vipera recalls agonizing for a month for this chance to meet an elf, fully prepared for Daphne's usual verbal abuse. Back in the present, Daphne impatiently asks why she has such a long face when she already agreed. Panicked, Vipera flinches and begs Daphne not to hit her, insisting she desperately needs the favor. Daphne tells her not to be afraid, but when Vipera calls it a lie, she menacingly offers to make it true. With a cute little shrug, Daphne announces that from now on, she won't hit anyone without a reason. Vipera looks on in disbelief, a hopeful and happy blush spreading across her face. She's absolutely beaming, surrounded by a vision of glowing white roses. Her patience wearing thin, Daphne gets straight to the point and asks why Vipera wants to meet the elf. Vipera explains she wants help with herbology, but Daphne internally questions this, knowing dwarves are the true experts in potions. Vipera suddenly explodes, shouting that she can't trust the dwarves and just wants to know if the herbs they gave her are any good. She complains that the dwarves make her perform strange tasks for rare herbs, which has made her suspicious. Daphne just listens with a get-on-with-it expression. As Vipera continues her story, Daphne realizes that for her to be making potions at her age means she's incredibly talented. Daphne concludes the dwarves must have taken a liking to Vipera, but she knows there's a big problem. Her mind flashes to Taiti, the elf, winning first place at a lying contest. Yeah, he's definitely the problem. Filled with fiery resolve, Daphne demands that Taiti tell her everything about the hero, especially his weaknesses and the perfect time to kill him. Vipera, meanwhile, is just relieved that for once, she's not getting hit. The scene shifts to Daphne running, panting with exertion and a look of fierce determination. A narration from Vipera explains that she and two others, including a boy named Heroes, were adopted by Daphne's mother and grew up together after she passed away. Vipera's story continues, revealing that Heroes would leave the castle on the Emperor's command a few times a month. And the most recent order he received was a grave one. The order was to kill the black dragon, the Calamity. The scene shows a knight facing the monstrous dragon, leading to the final thought. In conclusion, the reason I died.
The order to kill the dragon was absolute, a divine mandate handed down from the highest authority. It was the emperor's will. Hearing those final words in her memory, Daphne's eyes widen in shock. Grr! In a fit of chibi rage, she fumes, and yet he messes with me when I was just living quietly.
Meanwhile, the blonde hero, Heroes, complains that his ears are itching as his bespectacled aide apologizes. Daphne's voice screams in her mind, raging that it would have been an easy fight if that coward hadn't aimed for her core. With a new, vicious sparkle in her eye, Daphne sets her sights on a bigger prize, vowing to kill the emperor after she's done with the hero and crush the entire imperial family. Her new life goals become a cheerful, murderous chant. Down with the hero, down with the emperor. And just like that, she leads her own personal hype squad, with her servants cheering that she's amazing as she runs with newfound purpose. Later, draped dramatically over a sofa, she looks at a tiny pouch of crystals on the table and asks Tati, "Is this all the mana stones you brought?" Tati explains that mana stones, especially high-grade ones, have become scarce in the capital, and swears he scraped together every last one he could find. As Tati puts on a tearful performance, begging her to believe him, Daphne just deadpans in her thoughts. He's so obviously lying. Whatever, she sighs. Just bring double the amount next time. Instantly, Tati's tears vanish, and he clenches his fists, cheerfully promising to do his best. Having secured his funding, Tati casually mentions that he has a problem, which surprises Daphne. He expresses his shock that she could even have problems, to which she coolly replies that her current problem is deciding whether or not to kill him. Leaning in close, he reminds her about the assassin who targeted her. Now that news of her strength has spread, he warns, those same assassins will realize she's still alive. The timing is too perfect to be a coincidence. The Emperor orders the dragon's death right as dark mages tried to kill the hero's daughter. When Tati asks if she suspected them, Daphne simply confirms she did. Tati points out that the dark mages worship Lord Silas, so for them to target her is just like... She leaps to her feet with a sudden realization, leaving Tati wondering what she's figured out. This is just like a trashy isekai novel, she realizes, remembering a book titled The Calamity of a Past Life Becomes the Enemy of the Dark Mages. Tati cheerfully notes how popular those stories are. Now prostrated on the floor, Tati asks what she needs him to do. Daphne gives her first official order. He needs to find a way for her to enter the main estate building. The main building is shown, surrounded by a formidable, glowing blue magical barrier. Leaning against a wall, Tati sighs that the number of barriers is suffocatingly excessive. Standing in a grand hall, Tati starts to question her plan. But Daphne's eyes are filled with resolve. She knows this is where she'll find the biggest clue. A vision of a hooded man declaring his dominance over all things confirms her suspicions. Turning to Tati, she adds a new task to his list. Find the Great Sage. Tati slyly suggests that running errands will cut into his research time, which could delay her medicine. Not missing a beat, Daphne grins and announces she's found him an apprentice. Horrified at the thought of a human apprentice, Taiti freezes as Daphne informs him that from now on, he'll be teaching someone else to make her medicine. Absolutely not, he shouts, puffing out his chest and declaring himself a great and renowned elf. He scoffs at teaching a mere human, but when Daphne offers to relieve him of the duty once the student is trained, he does a full 90-degree bow, exclaiming he's always wanted an apprentice. Daphne internally notes how easy he is to handle, while Taiti, now sparkling with glee, asks for the name of his star pupil, promising to make them the greatest alchemist ever. With a smug smile, Daphne reveals the name of his new student. Her name is Vipera. Do your best. The scene shifts to the day of the Finch Marquisate's ball, with 2 elegant dresses on display. Maids frantically rush around Daphne, debating whether to fix her hair or her dress first, while another scrambles to find accessories and shoes.
Daphne looks exhausted as the maids fret about being short-staffed, Riley noting that no one would volunteer to help with her anyway.
Fed up with the fuss, she asks if they can just get it over with, shocking her maid. The maid's expression turns terrifyingly intense as she brandishes a hairbrush, declaring that Daphne must be the most radiant one there. Defeated, Daphne just agrees. As her hair is being brushed, Daphne sighs that she's already tired. A maid whispers that this is her first outing in 6 months. Elsewhere at the ball, a dark-haired Marquise gently holds her young, pink-haired daughter's hands. The mother gives her daughter instructions: greet the young lady and, if she seems to be in a good mood, offer her dessert. Then, in a brilliant parenting move, she whispers, "Actually, stay as far away as possible. It's better not to talk to her and get hit." The little girl wisely runs away screaming, earning her mother's proud approval. The narrator explains that since news of Daphne's victory over the bandits broke, the nobles are desperate for gossip. But since half their kids have already been beaten up by her, they're also terrified. One nobleman tells his wife their daughter has never met Daphne, but with twice the usual number of guests, his only goal is to survive the night without incident. Another lady approaches the Marquise, asking when Lady Daphne is expected to arrive. Taking a sip of her drink, the Marchioness replies that Daphne is running a little late, but has confirmed she's coming. A group of noble women gathers, giddy with excitement. One even canceled another engagement, all of them dying to see if the rumors about the reformed young lady are true. A smug-looking nobleman interjects, telling the Marquise it's obvious the guildmaster was exaggerating the story. He thinks Daphne couldn't possibly be that terrifying. With a condescending smile, he asks, "Wouldn't you agree?" The Marchioness forces a polite smile and agrees, while the lady beside her nervously hides her face behind a fan. Peeking over her fan, the nervous lady whispers in agreement, adding that she heard Daphne's body is actually quite weak. The gossip continues as one lady whispers that Daphne has an incurable disease, which is why everyone tolerates her awful behavior. But a smug-looking nobleman in green scoffs, finding it absurd that a child on death's door could suddenly defeat a gang of bandits. Another noble suggests it's all a ploy for attention, especially since the emperor hasn't summoned the Grand Ducal family recently.
The dark-haired Marchioness agrees, concluding there's no way to verify any of the wild stories about Daphne.
Perhaps, the nobleman replies with a sly grin, but her skills can certainly be tested. The Marchioness looks intrigued. And right on cue, Daphne makes her grand entrance, looking angelic in a white lace dress, but with an unreadable expression. A close-up on her piercing green eyes reveals a quiet, calculating intensity. The nobles all glance her way, a silent, still, hanging in the air as they wait to see what she'll do. One of them internally wishes they could talk to her just once, desperate to know if the rumors are true. As Daphne looks around the opulent ballroom, she has only one thought on her mind. She stands alone in a circle of emptiness as the crowd parts like the Red Sea, wondering why no one is coming anywhere near her. Spotting a group of girls her age, she sighs, realizing her old reputation is still going strong when all she wants is to find some clues. Determined to be friendly, she tries to smile as kindly as possible. But her inner demon lord comes out, sending the poor girls into a terrified huddle. She asks why they aren't answering, her question backed by the Grim Reaper himself, which only makes the girls shriek in pure terror. The three girls, led by a pink-haired one, frantically beg Lady Daphne not to get angry, leaving her utterly confused. The pink-haired girl composes herself, offering a sweet and polite greeting. But her internal monologue is a whole different story, as she silently commands the other girls to beg for their lives. Or else. As the girls plead for forgiveness, a light bulb goes off in Daphne's head. I see, she thinks, a plan forming. Leaning into their fear, she asks if they're cowering because she's just that great and powerful, and the pink-haired girl nervously agrees. The pink-haired girl fully commits to the bit, grabbing her friend and loudly proclaiming that Lady Daphne is magnificent. They even fetch her a throne-like chair and offer her drinks and cookies, hoping to appease the tiny tyrant. Daphne is quite satisfied, thinking these kids are more sensible than she gave them credit for. As the other two girls, Anne and Anna, bring her treats, Daphne mentally prepares to brag about her newfound greatness to everyone back home. Just as she's considering making the pink-haired girl her subordinate, a boy shoves her aside, shouting, "Out of the way, pest!" He stomps over to her throne and calls her out by her full name, Daphne Acheon. Pointing an accusatory finger, he declares he's never forgotten the day she broke his nose. Looks like one of her past victims is back for round 2. As she munches on a cookie, Daphne coolly wonders if this is yet another one of the original Daphne's grudges. Her eyes narrow with focus as she realizes something more important is at play. She mentally accuses him of planning another sneak attack and suggests a fair fight, since he's supposedly a swordsman. He just sneers, calling her a brute and a liar who knows nothing of honor. Unseen by them, a man watches the confrontation unfold from a balcony above. He is identified as Duke Brown, and he reports with satisfaction that she's doing well. The Duke scoffs internally, believing this is all a desperate attempt by Duke Aegeon to regain the emperor's favor. He smugly lays out his plan. Daphne's pride will force her to accept the duel with his son, an apprentice guardian named Mark, and her humiliation will be swift.
Once she's exposed, the rumors will turn into a scandal, tightening the noose around the Acheon family for Heros Acheon's foolish actions. Mark threatens to teach her a lesson, but Daphne calmly retorts that he'll just end up knocked out again, questioning his dignity. Enraged, Mark shouts that he's not the weakling he used to be. He draws his wooden sword, challenging her to draw hers and see his true strength. Daphne steps off her chair, casually dismissing him. "I don't need a sword to deal with someone like you." "Don't cry when you lose," he yells, charging at her with all his might. But in a stunning move, she catches the blade of his sword with her bare hand. Mark's face is a picture of pure shock and disbelief. He can't believe what just happened. With a flick of her wrist, she effortlessly controls his weapon. She disarms him and holds the sword to his throat, coolly telling him he's got 100 years to go before he can even touch her. An internal voice scolds him for pushing a lady and not even bothering to apologize. The noble women are floored. One of them gasps, "Lady Daphne just took down apprentice guardian Mark in one hit?" The nobleman from before is equally stunned, barely able to believe his eyes. Having dealt with the bully, Daphne turns and offers a hand to the pink-haired girl still on the floor. She looks down at the girl with a surprisingly gentle expression. The pink-haired girl thinks Daphne might actually be kind, but Daphne just brushes it off, demanding tea and sweets for her low blood sugar. She knows exactly how to play this game. After the commotion, Daphne takes a moment for herself, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. Leaning on the balcony railing, she finally catches her breath, lamenting how weak her body is. She wonders when she'll fully recover, admitting she's getting better, but feels impatient for more progress. Her thoughts are interrupted by a presence below, and she looks down, surprised. A mysterious, long-haired man in elegant robes smiles up at her, asking if he should call her Celis. That name sends her into a fury. "Great sage," she roars, finally having cornered the man she's been hunting. Unfazed by her rage, the great sage simply smiles, looking thoroughly pleased with himself. He appears as a glitching hologram, coolly confirming he knew she was there. Annoyed, Daphne manifests a swirl of purple energy. She gets straight to the point, demanding to know how he knew she'd be in this body and how he managed to find her. He cryptically dismisses her, claiming he's short on time. This only enrages her further, as she accuses him of always wasting it. He explains that he was thrown to the other side of the continent and is using an energy-draining illusion to speak with her. His illusion reveals her true mission, to uncover why Lord Celis died, and, more importantly, how he came to possess that specific body. Daphne scoffs, pointing out that's what she's been trying to ask him. He cheekily replies that just giving her the answer would be no fun, as a strange mark appears on her arm. The great sage's illusion maintains his placid, infuriating smile. He leaves her with a chilling warning. The black mages are about to make their move. A vision explains that these mages used forbidden death magic, burning their own life force for power, which is why they have all but vanished. Daphne is unimpressed,
thinking that while a life was sacrificed for the curse on her body, the mages themselves are just a bunch of weaklings. Suddenly, the sage's illusion grabs her leg, causing her to yelp in shock about her true dragon body. He pretends to check the time, announcing his departure and wishing her well. Daphne is livid, screaming at the clockless bastard to answer her questions. With a final flash of light, the great sage's illusion disappears, leaving Daphne utterly alone and fuming. Her face contorts in pure rage as she adds the lunatic sage to the very top of her personal hit list. Stomping her foot, she vows to have Tati forge a magical restraint just for him the moment she returns. Just then, a violent tremor shakes the entire building, catching her completely off guard. A sinister, dark aura seeps through the doors, and she instantly recognizes it as the aura of death. His warning echoes in her mind, and she realizes with a jolt that the black mages are already here. Panic erupts inside as the staff screams that the building is collapsing, urging everyone to evacuate. A woman in a purple dress frantically looks around, her face pale with worry for the children. In the ensuing chaos, a man shoves the woman aside, screaming that he won't die there as he flees for his own life. The panicked nobleman from before grabs a butler by the shirt. He desperately demands the butler get him out, but the servant can only plead with him to stay calm. While demanding to know if there's a hidden exit, his selfish rant is cut short by a piece of falling rubble. Thwack! He stumbles back, clutching his head in shock and pain. His eyes widen when he sees Lady Daphne standing before him, protecting another woman and child as she calls him out on his cowardice. She glares down at him, calling him pathetic and asking if he ignored the cries to save the children first. He's left utterly speechless. Turning her back on the coward, Daphne addresses the woman in purple. She instructs her to take the small girl and get to safety, assuring her they have a little time before the structure gives way. As the woman rushes off with the child, Daphne remains behind, ready to face the danger. She finds another terrified child crying on the floor and tells her to get up, deciding she has to find the source of the explosion to stop the aura of death. With the energy too scattered to pinpoint, she realizes she's in a race against time to find the source before the entire mansion caves in. Helping the crying girl to her feet, she asks if she can walk, and the child shakily agrees. As she comforts the girl, a familiar scent suddenly hits her. She looks up to see the ballroom engulfed in flames. "This just got worse," she mutters, as the girl in her arms begins coughing violently. A hand extends a handkerchief, offering it to help with the smoke. Daphne covers the girl's mouth, noting how fragile human children are, and vowing to protect her. Clenching her soot-covered fist, she makes a silent promise. "I won't let them die." Spotting another couple struggling in the inferno, she shouts that the child's condition is worsening, driven by the need to protect the weak. "Take them outside, now," she commands the man, who quickly snaps to attention and agrees. With flames roaring around her and her eyes glowing with power, Daphne makes a solemn vow to ensure every single person escapes alive. Believing she's cleared most of the building, she's startled when a man calls out her name. It's the man she ordered to help. He's relieved she's okay, but begs her to leave, insisting it's too dangerous to stay any longer. The man she ordered to help extends a hand, a determined smile on his soot-stained face,
as he urges her to escape with him. Daphne recognizes him as the man who was saving others earlier, and a flicker of respect crosses her face. In a cute internal moment, she gives him a passing grade, leaving the poor guy utterly confused. She dismisses him, telling him to leave while she searches a little longer, but he's not having it. He notices the gash on her forehead, realizing she's injured and probably doesn't even know it. His eyes burn with conviction as he, Count Milan, vows to use his newspaper company to broadcast her heroism to the world. He lunges to grab her, deciding to get her out of there by force. As he tries to drag her to safety, she screams that she's fine, refusing to leave just yet. She fights against his hold, insisting she's not done checking, but stops cold when a tiny voice cries for its mama. To Count Milan's horror, she breaks free and dashes back into the heart of the inferno. He screams her name, begging her to stop as she disappears into the roaring flames. The scene shifts to a powerful, blonde-haired knight in shining armor, cutting down a foe with a flash of turquoise energy. Wiping his blade, he surveys the battlefield, wondering just how many more of these monsters there are. His aide reports that these are the unidentified monsters everyone's been talking about, creatures he's never seen before. Looking at the grotesque corpses, the aide notes that they look odd. He clarifies that they're chimeras, monsters forcibly fused together, a revelation that shocks the knight. The aide deduces their unauthorized experiments escaped from a lab, and the knight grimly notes that creating them is a capital offense. The knight observes his blade, remarking that while the creators are monsters themselves, their creations are surprisingly well made. The aide complains about the creator's cockroach-like persistence, but the knight declares he's washing his hands of it, a decision the aide doubts is possible. The knight coolly states this is a job for the Guardians and the Capital Defense Force, not him. He then tells his aide to handle the cleanup, leaving the man speechless. As the knight walks off, his aide thinks about how much His Excellency despises black mages, wondering what's going on behind that stoic mask. Feeling like a failure, the aide clenches his fist, but ultimately accepts the command. Just as he's about to wrap things up, a sudden burst of energy puts both him and the knight on high alert. A green aura flares around the knight as his aide stammers, asking what just happened. The knight's expression darkens. He realizes the black mages have made their move sooner than he anticipated. The aide panics, suggesting they just leave and pretend they saw nothing, since their orders didn't cover acts of terrorism. He spots smoke in the distance, identifying it as Marquis Finch's estate, but brushing it off, confident their own knights can handle it. The knight drops a bombshell. Daphne went there today. The aide is stunned, and before he can react, His Excellency is already on the move. The knight sprints through the fields at full speed, leaving his aides screaming his title in the dust. Back at the estate, Daphne stands alone amidst the raging, all-consuming fire. She frantically searches the burning ruins, calling out for whoever made that sound. The smoke is getting to her, making it hard to think, and she realizes she needs to find another way out, fast. Through the blaze, she spots a small figure on the floor. "Found you!" she cries, a wave of relief washing over her. The pink-haired girl, shocked and tearful, can't believe Lady Daphne came back for her. Daphne tells her to get up so they can escape, but the girl says it's not that simple. Crying, the pink-haired girl reveals her leg is trapped under a massive slab of debris.
Unfazed, Daphne declares she can lift it and tells the girl to get ready to pull her leg free. With a fierce grunt of exertion, Daphne puts all her strength into lifting the heavy stone. Now free, the girl confirms she can walk, but then gasps in horror at the sight of Daphne's bloody, injured hand. Daphne dismisses her own injury, telling the girl to focus on her leg, but her new friend is clearly worried. Putting survival first, Daphne asks if anyone else is trapped. The girl explains she got everyone out before getting pinned herself. Daphne looks at her with a newfound appreciation. She gives a small, proud smile, praising the girl for acting exactly as one of her subordinates should. The pink-haired girl looks up at her, completely stunned by the compliment. As they prepare to find a way out, Daphne suddenly freezes, sensing something deeply wrong. A strong aura of death, she thinks, as the pink-haired girl asks what's happening. She quickly ducks behind a large, overturned table, pulling the other girl with her. Peeking from under the tablecloth, her eyes narrow, scanning the danger ahead. "Did you find something?" asks the pink-haired girl, her voice trembling slightly. Peeking from their hiding spot, Daphne's eyes widen in disbelief as she spots the source of the aura. It's a bomb disguised as a book. The pink-haired girl panics, but Daphne grimly informs her this isn't the kind of bomb you can just dismantle. Her eyes narrow with grim understanding. This device was crafted with forbidden black magic. She explains its immense power could wipe the entire estate off the map, as the rescued nobles wonder what's going on outside. The horrifying realization hits her. If it goes off, everyone she just saved will be killed. She has to stop it here and now. The little pink-haired girl begins to cry, terrified they're both about to die. "Die?" Daphne scoffs. "Who said anything about dying with me here?" She puffs out her chest with comical overconfidence, leaving her little companion utterly baffled. A dark, swirling power awakens within her, the aura of great calamity, the very essence of her former life. She realizes the bomb's death energy is almost identical to her own calamitous aura. A wicked grin spreads across her face. This black magic bomb is basically a gourmet meal for her. She just needs to process it, and she'll get a massive power-up. The pink-haired girl shrieks in terror. "You're going to detonate it?" Daphne lays out the insane plan. She'll use the blast to clear a path for the girl to escape, who can only stare in disbelief. With a glint in her eye, she declares she'll stop the bomb and get a free mana boost while she's at it. Talk about a win-win. The girl is speechless, but Daphne cuts her off, telling her to quit talking and get ready to run. "Be careful!" Daphne shouts as she sprints toward the bomb, leaving the girl screaming for her to come back. The pink-haired girl can only watch in awe, wondering how someone could so readily sacrifice themselves for others. This is far beyond her understanding. Her mind flashes back to Daphne reaching for her in the flames. She remembers the comfort and safety Daphne offered in the middle of the inferno. Tears streaming down her face, she screams with all her might, "I can't let Lady Daphne die like this!" "All right, then," Daphne thinks with a hungry grin, unleashing her dark power. "Shall we begin our meal?" The estate is rocked by a second massive explosion, but as the survivors watch in horror, they see not fire, but a swirling vortex of pure dark energy. At the epicenter of the blast, Daphne stands alone, absorbing the chaotic maelstrom of power. Her eyes glow with terrifying purple light as she channels the raw energy of the explosion. Uh-oh. The energy is far stronger than she anticipated, spreading faster than her small body can absorb it. She grits her teeth, realizing that even with Tady's potion, her human form is at its absolute limit. For a fleeting moment, she considers releasing the energy to save herself. But she immediately rejects the thought. Doing so would kill everyone she just fought to save, and she refuses to let them die again. She remembers that Calamity was just a name, a past she has left behind. With her karma broken, she is no longer that helpless person. She can finally act on her true intentions. Her eyes blaze with conviction. "Only I can save them," she roars, commanding the deathly aura to be devoured by her own power. Ugh! The backlash hits her hard, and she coughs up blood from the strain. She clutches her head in agony, the energizing potion wearing off at the worst possible moment. Suddenly, a brilliant golden light slashes through the darkness, shattering the chaotic energy. A familiar voice rings through the chaos. Dazed, Daphne looks up, the blinding light reflecting in her tired eyes. The force of the attack sends her stumbling backward, her tiny legs giving way. A gauntleted hand reaches out, and the blonde knight's voice calls her name. "Daphne!" He catches her, his sword planted firmly in the ground, his expression filled with relief and sorrow. "You did well," he says softly, his voice full of pride. "All on your own." Exhausted and overwhelmed, all she can manage is a faint, "ah." Her small hand touches his armor as her strength finally fails her. With a final, faint smile of gratitude, she loses consciousness in her savior's arms. A system window pops up, confirming her success. Her mana has leveled up to 50. Outside, the woman in the purple dress finds her daughter, Brysa, and pulls her into a tearful, relieved hug. The mother clutches Brysa tightly, telling her how worried she was. Brysa explains she was trapped, but was rescued by Lady Daphne, leaving her mother stunned. Count Milan's eyes light up with excitement, realizing Daphne's heroic dash back inside was to save the girl. Bryce's mother is still processing the information, her face pale with shock and confusion. Brysa grabs her mother's hand, determined to tell her the whole story. She reveals that Daphne shielded her from a magic bomb with her own body, a revelation that leaves both her mother and Count Milan utterly speechless. As the nobles reel from the explosion, Count Milan confirms their fears. That was no ordinary bomb. He clutches his cravat, a flicker of recognition on his face. He's felt that terrifying energy before. The memory hits him like a lightning bolt. It was the unmistakable aura of death, meaning it had to be a dark magic bomb. As he explains that the bomb drains life force, Bryce's mother turns pale, crying out, "Then what about Lady Daphne?" The knight's aide sprints towards him, shouting for his master and asking about the lady's condition. He obviously has no idea of what happened. He finally reaches the knight, only to see the horrifying sight of an unconscious and bloodied Daphne cradled in his arms. The aide confirms she's alive, but barely, noting her body is in a terrible state.
The crowd erupts in panic, with Count Milan realizing she's going to die, and that only holy power can fight dark magic, while Bryce's mother laments Daphne's sacrifice. Taking charge, the aide gently lifts Daphne, announcing he'll call a priest to the mansion, and they're leaving immediately. But the blonde knight stops him with a glare, asking if there's a problem with that plan. He stands over his aide, who has now set the unconscious Daphne down on the grass. The knight sighs, stating that anyone with eyes should be able to understand what Daphne just accomplished. His aide quickly connects the dots. She absorbed all the death aura from the bomb, and the knight simply confirms, yes. Overhearing this, a nobleman's voice rings out, filled with awe and gratitude. Daphne Acchion is a hero. The aide, holding Daphne, urges the tearful onlookers to hurry along. As the carriage departs, the saved nobles cheer, proclaiming that Lady Daphne is their hero and that they'll never forget her kindness. They vow to commemorate her sacrifice, prompting the knight to dryly point out, she's not dead yet, so they quickly correct it to commemorating her achievements. The scene shifts to a dark, menacing forest under the night sky. A congregation of cloaked black mages gathers as a subordinate reports to their leader. A hooded figure with a bandaged face seethes with fury, unable to believe his carefully laid plan has failed. The focus shifts from the aftermath to the villains behind the plot. A flashback reveals the history of the Black Mages. They annihilated the White Dragon, were nearly wiped out by the heroes Acheon, but a few survived. These survivors formed a secret organization called Spectre, quietly sharpening their blades of revenge for 5 long years. Today's attack was meant to be their grand reemergence, a declaration of vengeance against the Empire. The leader berates his subordinate, enraged that he failed such a simple and crucial mission. He reminds the man he was ordered to commit suicide upon failure, so his return is an act of defiance. The purple-haired mage falls to his knees, swearing he doesn't fear death, but had to return with vital information first. The other mages prostrate themselves, begging their leader to just listen to what they have to say. Their combined pleas give him a moment's pause. With an exasperated sigh, the bandaged leader covers his face and demands to know what's so important. The subordinate reveals the shocking truth. The child of the hero, cursed by their former leader, was at the scene of the attack. He explains that Daphne Acheon should be dead, as the massive death energy from the bomb should have activated the curse sealed within her, and insists he ordered her killed months ago. The leader glares down, questioning if he was given a false report, but the subordinate frantically denies it, swearing they confirmed her death. The leader isn't convinced. The leader stands alone, a silent, menacing figure shrouded in the eerie light of the forest. He clenches his fist in frustration, wondering if this mere child is obstructing their plans. He vows to search for her. They will deal with her curse and deal with her directly. He declares that no one who stands in their way can be left alive, and his followers promise to act immediately while cursing the hero who destroyed their families. With a sudden snap of his fingers, the leader makes his move. Crack! A wave of dark energy erupts, freezing and shattering his failed subordinates into dust. He calmly explains that the death energy they possessed will now be reabsorbed
becoming the power of specter. With his followers disposed of, the leader's eyes glow with cold purpose. Now it's time to find the disaster's corpse. The scene returns to the knight's residence, where he sits calmly reading the morning paper. The headlines are in an uproar over the Black Mage's reappearance, but he knows their return is only part of the problem. He reflects on the past 3 days, noting the mounting criticism against the imperial family for their delayed response. He speculates that their hesitation is because Daphne, the very person who stopped the terror attack, still hasn't woken up. In her bed, Daphne sleeps soundly, unaware of the political storm brewing outside. He looks down with a heavy heart, wondering if some god is pitying him for his fate, a man who lost his emotions, his wife, and has a cursed daughter. His thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of a green-haired man with elf ears pushing a cart of potions. The elf reassures him that Daphne will wake up soon, all while hiding the real reason for her coma. She absorbed death energy to level up her mana. As the elf muses that some potions will fix her up, the knight cuts in with a chilling request. If death is closer than life, tell me in advance. Looking over his sleeping daughter, he coldly states that if she's going to die, they need to prepare the funeral ahead of time. The elf is utterly speechless, thinking to himself that even the most cold-blooded elf wouldn't say something so heartless. This guy's personality is on another level. The green-haired elf furiously crushes a piece of paper, calling it human trash, while thinking of a high-paying employer, and then announces he'll go get more medicine. Tap. The blonde knight watches him leave with a cold, unreadable expression. He stands by the bedside, looking down at his daughter, Daphne, who is sleeping peacefully. His mind drifts to a memory of 2 men reviewing paperwork and a newspaper. He then remembers a maid, struggling and exhausted under the weight of a large pile of boxes. He reflects that for anyone else, worrying about their child would be a natural feeling. But a curse cast 5 years ago erased his emotions, and he wonders if he would have been worried for her otherwise. He recalls the moment his wife died, feeling absolutely nothing, and covers his face in quiet despair, overwhelmed by it all. The memory of a younger Daphne's bitter words stings him. She asked why he let her be born if he was just going to let her mom die. She had screamed at him, insisting he should have just let her die too. He remembers standing there, completely silent, unable to respond to her venomous accusations. In his memory, she stands before him, pointing a sword at her own father, fueled by a deep-seated rage. Back then, he simply thought it might be better if she just struck him down, though he knows that flimsy sword couldn't have ended him. He's snapped out of his thoughts when Daphne suddenly bolts upright in her bed. Waking up, Daphne is immediately annoyed to see the hero's face, muttering that reality is more cursed than her dreams as the knight stares in shock. With a huff, she flops right back down, turning her back on him completely. She gives him a final, annoyed glance over her shoulder. The knight looks utterly stunned, his hand covering his mouth in disbelief. Having rolled off the bed, Daphne complains from the floor about dropping something. Back on her bed, she assesses her condition. Her mana is at 50, but the backlash is worse this time, leaving her with just enough power for a spell or 2. She cheekily pops a small blue mana potion into her mouth. A maid peeks through the door, happily asking if the lady is awake. She enters, announcing she's brought some sandwiches for a snack. At the sight of food, Daphne's eyes widen with delight. As one maid offers to wash her hands, Daphne admits she was feeling hungry. The maid gently holds her hand, asking how she is, and Daphne replies she's feeling much better. The maid notes with concern that she looks paler and has lost the weight she'd recently gained. Scolding her gently for the danger she was in, the maid says she would have been heartbroken, but Daphne just shrugs it off, saying what matters is that she's fine. She wishes she could have done more, but she's just a beginner. As one maid, Anne, tells her to put herself first, another chides her, while Daphne happily munches on her sandwich in the background. The second maid points to a pile of letters, reminding Anne of all the thank you notes Daphne received from the people she saved. She points out that now everyone is desperate to invite the lady, a huge change from before. The maid explains this is why she's so happy now, because everyone finally sees how kind-hearted the lady truly is. She clasps her hands together, a warm, genuine smile lighting up her face. Daphne looks up from her snack, touched by the maid's sincere happiness for her.
She thinks to herself that it's the first time she's ever seen Anne smile like that.
Both maids insist that she must take better care of herself from now on.
Daphne looks down at her sandwich, a thoughtful expression on her face.
She looks up and asks Anne if she can see the letters.
Anne happily hands them over, revealing a note that reads, "Thank you, Lady Daphne."
Daphne holds an invitation, asking her to visit an estate sometime.
She looks at the stacks of letters, wondering if this is the joy of having good deeds recognized and accepted.
She reflects that being reincarnated as Daphne, not the calamity, allowed her to finally break the cycle of karma that tormented her for centuries. Reading the letters with a blissful smile, she realizes this joy is powerful enough to erase the painful memories of being blamed by those she once saved. A maid suggests it's time to return to the annex, as the doctor has cleared her to move. The other maid offers her a glass of warm milk, which Daphne gratefully accepts. She takes a big gulp, leaving behind an adorable milk mustache. The scene shifts to her bedroom window under a starry night sky.
Uh-oh, a hooded figure shrouded in dark energy materializes in her room while she sleeps.
The intruder looms over her, baffled. He thinks to himself, I clearly felt her heart stop. So how is this possible? The green-haired leader of Spectre reflects that Heroes Acheon, the Empire's greatest swordmaster, was summoned to the palace, noting how the public still sees him as a hero, making the idea of having him kill his own daughter an act of delicious cruelty, even with all the knights guarding her.
He reflects that he had to wait for Daphne to leave the main building, and now he can't miss his chance.
Reaching out with a hand crackling with dark magic, he prepares to strike the sleeping girl, thinking only one word: die.
Zap! His own magic backfires, throwing him back as he mutters that childcare is a total nightmare.
Pinned to the floor by tendrils of darkness, he stares in disbelief as Daphne stands over him, scolding the foolish human on the proper way to use magic. Now sitting on the edge of her bed with a sinister smile, she's surrounded by an ominous aura and tells him to watch carefully and learn his lesson. The intruder panics, wondering if this seemingly normal child was hiding her powers, or if this is all an elaborate trap set by the hero,
as Daphne coolly notes his frantic thoughts. He collapses to the floor under immense pressure, and she sarcastically praises his dedication to gathering intel even at a time like this. With a sassy wink, she asks why someone who's about to die needs answers, adding that it's a shame he can't tattle on her to his boss. Furious at being mocked by a child, the green-haired intruder snarls at the insolent thing. He unleashes a massive explosion of purple energy, screaming for her to perish, confident that his one-hit kill spell, only ever blocked by their leader, can't fail. But Daphne just smirks, calling his spell pathetic and telling him he's about a century too early, as she effortlessly dissolves his attack, leaving the intruder horrified that his magic is being erased from existence. She calmly explains that while his black magic and her calamity power share a death aura, hers is the premium, deluxe version, making his spell a piece of cake to overcome. As she demands answers, the intruder realizes he's completely outmatched and must get this information to his leader, even if it means dying so his comrades can report his demise. He resolves to send the death aura into his own heart and die for Spectre, a sacrifice Daphne observes with a sigh, noting he's always been too quick to throw his life away. Suddenly, a hand clamps down, stopping his self-destruction mid-spell. The intruder watches in shock as his death aura is forced back into his own body, while Daphne explains that for her, death is just the natural order of things. Her eyes blazing with purple light, she grabs him by the face and reveals her true identity. She is the great dragon and the wicked calamity, declaring that his life is now hers.